Miss Martine, and it's time for another recent reads. After I finished Squash That series, you can check out my last vlog for that here. I took a little bitty break from vlogging, but I still read a ton, so I wanted to quickly catch you up on the books I read. I think I have 10 books here to talk to you about. Don't worry, a lot of them I have very little to say about. So let's just jump straight into it. I'm going to be going from my least favorite to my most favorite. Okay, so my least favorite was related to Squash That series because I started The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik during Squash That series, and I did not even get close to finishing it during Squash That series, but I had it on loan for the library, so I was like, I have to finish it because there are more people waiting, and so I'd have to put a hold on it anyway. It was a whole thing. I did not have a good time with this. I gave it 2 stars. The first half, I would say, was an absolute drag. Things picked up in the second half, but like not enough to redeem it at all for me. In addition, I'm still not entirely sure I knew what happened. This was the finale to the Scholomance trilogy. Yeah, overall the series was like, for me, but I did read it, so there's that. My second book is actually 3 books, because I read a bind-up of 3 romance novellas by Sarah Gay, and I'm going to be talking about all of them now because I gave all of them 2 stars. So that was The Spark of a Kiss, Love by Christmas, and Engaged by Christmas. Yes, we've got a weird holiday mix in here. I have some Halloween books and I have some Christmas books. It's been an interesting reading time. I gave all 3 of these 2 stars, but in my head, it's above The Golden Enclaves because I really did have a fun time reading these. They were so cheesy, it hurt, but was also hilarious. This was like the worst kind of Hallmark movie, but in a book. Especially the 2 Christmas ones, in my opinion. All 3 of these follow different women as they fall in love with firefighters in this small town. They're clean romances, which I appreciated, with some really wacky premises. I have to say, for the first book, I was more interested in the stalker subplot than I was in the actual romance itself. I did like the relationships in Love by Christmas more, I cared about that more. And then Engaged by Christmas, it tried to be enemies to lovers, but in the way where they're kind of enemies. One doesn't know they're an enemy, and then the other, as soon as they speak, as soon as they open their mouth, they don't even say anything interesting or redeeming. Just the second they're face to face with each other, they're like, just kidding, I don't hate you anymore. So all those happened, and now I'm moving forward with my life. Number 3 to talk about is You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen M. McManus. The only thing I have in my notes is 3 stars. This is a YA thriller mystery. It's about these 3 teens. They used to be really close. They've drifted apart. Suddenly today, they're together when it just so happens that one of their classmates dies mysteriously, and they're around when it happens. A classic Karen M. McManus, if you will. And so it got a 3 stars. It was a fun time. I listened to this on audiobook, but it wasn't anything crazy. Next, also with 3 stars, I have, and I really have to look at my notes for this one because it's kind of a long title, Hillhaven Creeps and the Halloween King by Brandon Bernstein. Hear me out. This got really weird at the end, and I couldn't follow it at the end. But overall, the vibes were absolutely what I wanted from a book that had the word Halloween in the title. The number of times it described falling leaves and the scent of jack-o'-lanterns. This one is about this group of kids. They live in this town, Hillhaven Creeps? It's at least Hillhaven. Anyway, so they live in this town, which kind of gives me a Stranger Things vibe, because they're just this little group riding around on their bike or whatever. Regardless, then there are these signs that a carnival is coming to town, but it's on somebody else's property. It's a Halloween carnival, and then people start going missing, and it's just really weird. It's super weird, very weird. But again, the vibes were exactly what I was looking for, and when I did my spooky vlog, those were not the vibes I was looking for, so I'm glad I got them in this. Then, coming in at 3.5 stars, I have Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour, which is the Shelf This Book Club pick for the month of November. Bailey is the host of the Shelf This Book Club, and every time it's co-hosted by somebody else, and Yerba Buena was picked and co-hosted by Nessa. Basic premise of this book, dual perspective, sapphic. We love. It's mainly a family drama, and it revolves around this restaurant called Yerba Buena. But I don't want to give much else away, because it's like some crazy stuff happens. We get off to a running start. That's what everybody has been saying in the group chat when we're talking about Yerba Buena. They're like, this really hit the ground running. But it's largely a family drama and a sapphic romance. And that's the vibe. And I gave it 3.5 because, like, I'm glad I read it. Next, I read Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly. I gave this 4 stars. And if you want to hear more about my thoughts about it, you can check out the Magic Tree House live show. And this is honestly the book that I wanted to make this recent reads for. A lot of these other books could disappear into the ether, and like, even if I really loved them, like, you don't need to hear me talk about them, but you need to hear me talk about this book. So I read Josie and Jack by Kelly Braffett, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I read this in one night, so basically in one sitting. And listen, this was one of the weirdest reading experiences I've ever had. This in some ways leans into a retelling of Hansel and Gretel insofar as there is a brother and a sister and they leave home. And that's about, I think, where the comparison ends. But they tried for the comparison regardless. I don't think it was necessary to try the comparison, but they had it. So you've got this brother and this sister, and they've got this really weird relationship. I would say sibling relationship, but it's like, not entirely. Regardless, they live with their dad, and their dad's really weird. He's technically a professor at this college that's like a ways away. And so he goes and he lives on campus during the week while he teaches, and he only comes back on the weekends. But they live in the house the whole time. They're homeschooled, so their dad like leaves homework for them to do. And like, that's as much schooling as they get, and they just kind of live together. So it's a really weird setup already, right? And I don't know how Child Protective Services never caught wind of this, because everybody in town knew they were living like this, and they were all like, no one's gonna rat them out, okay? So here they are, they're living like this. And then the brother Jack, he leaves home. Jack is like, really weird. He spends a lot of time trying to convince Josie to do things. Like, he's very manipulative, so he gets her to do things for his benefit, even if it's like manipulating other people. So like, he knows she'll be more influential to this person, so like, he makes her target them, etc. He leaves. Eventually Josie joins him, and they basically couch surf for like a while. I'm not going to spoil this for you because I think it's worth the read. You should look up trigger warnings though if you're going to read it, but it's definitely worth the read because I found it really interesting. There are 2 points that I'm not going to say enough for them to be spoilers, but they exist in the realm of spoilers, if that makes any sense. First of all, the way ferrets played an important part in the momentum of this plot was just a lot for me. I never thought a huge conflict in a book would be caused by a ferret. Now, hear me out. I'm not a fan of ferrets, but like, I didn't think that poorly of them. So, you know, the ferret scene was really, you know, something. It's not like graphic or anything. It was just like, wow, this is such a weird way to move the plot forward. And then the finale of the book was incredibly weird. I learned a botanical fact that I did not know. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. I learned things from this, and I didn't know how I felt after, but I knew that it had me hooked the whole time, so it got 4 stars. That's on that. And then the last book I have to talk to you about is Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, which I gave 5 stars, so it's the highest rated in this. It's the final book in Strange the Dreamer duology, or is it the Dreamer duology? Regardless, it's the last book in a duology. I also started this during Squash That series, didn't finish it, finished it afterwards. It was worth waiting until I could like really take my time with it. I still read it pretty quickly, but like, it was nice to have it in the breathable space outside of Squash That series, because this was so much. Listen, my review for this in my notes for this video says, and I quote, woof, because this book stressed me out so much, like so much. It stressed me out so much, which is good because it means I like felt something, and it was so beautifully written, and I cared about the characters so much. So it was just like a lot to handle. It was a lot to handle, but I'm so glad I read it. Even if I didn't get the points for my team in Squash That series based off of it, you know what? I still had a great time. And that's it. Those are the books I have to talk to you about. especially this one, because what the heck. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what's the weirdest book you've read recently, and what's a one-word spoiler non-spoiler about that book to catch my attention. For this, ferrets. Okay, so leave that in the comments below, and subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!